Hello and welcome to the Risky Business Podcast. I'm Sam Stone. I'm sitting down with people who I have seen take big risks in their life. My goal is to encourage you, challenge you, and push you to take a risk, whatever that may be in your life. Risky business. Let's get risky. Here we go.
Put in work, I got so much potential, it hurts. If y'all do not wake up, then y'all gon' get hurt.
All right, welcome back to the Risky Business Podcast. Very excited for today's episode, sitting down with a great friend of how many years do you think it's been?
Shoot. Since way back?
I don't know, probably middle school is when we first were.
Yeah, I mean, it's 15 years probably.
Yeah, 15 years. And then, I haven't seen you in a couple years till now because you had the wrong phone number for me.
I did. I texted you. You didn't text me back.
He sends me a nice text message, and then I had to track down his phone number, and ended up he was like, hey, I was texting some random person. So whoever has 794-9138, I apologize.
They need to text me back because it was a really nice text.
Yeah, you're. If you know me, you know if I don't respond in about 10 minutes, most likely something happened to me.
Yeah.
Or I just don't like you. So Scotty, I do like you. This is Scotty Scearce. He's been a longtime friend and a true risky business entrepreneur. When I think back of one of the first entrepreneurs, he's younger than me by how old are you?
A year.
Okay, so
29. Younger
than me by a year, and looked up to him in business from very early on because I don't want to spoil your story. You tell your story of entrepreneurship from early on. So welcome, Scotty Scearce. Thanks for sitting down.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a cool studio, cool to be here. But my story on business starts a long time ago. I mean, I was homeschooled for 10 years of my life until I was a junior in high school. I went to Ballard High School in Louisville, Kentucky as a junior and senior, and it was my mom was either going to kill me or I was going to kill her, so she said, you need to go to public school. I'm not doing this anymore. I was the baby of the family, so it's time to get out. But in the meantime, when I first was homeschooled, I think I was 9 years old. My mom had a good friend of hers. Her name is Melissa Lintner, and she was an English teacher. She taught at Cal, Christian Academy of Louisville, for a long time, and she retired from that or quit. But she taught us once a week. She taught us English when I was homeschooled. And I was 9. My brother was.
Your mom didn't feel comfortable on the English teaching level.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it'd be like math or something. She's like, this whole English thing.
It was the opportunity presented itself.
I'm just kidding.
Melissa, we went over to her house once a week, and one of our assignments was to make a trifold business brochure. And
great. How old were you?
I was 9.
Wow.
My brother was 11, and we made one together, and we called it Lightning Lawn Care, and we made this trifold business brochure of like a list of services, like how to get in touch with us, what we're going to offer, like why should you hire us, basically, on this trifold business brochure. And then Melissa, in turn, was like, hey, you should actually just cut my grass when you come here, and once a week. So we started doing that when I was 9 and my brother was 11. And then the next year, we decided that we wanted to start cutting some neighbors, which a lot of people do, right? And when they're a kid, at least cut grass. I hope my kids will do that one day, but they'll probably end up working for me instead of doing that on their own. But so the next year,
how old are your kids now?
I have a 1-year-old Cooper, a almost 3-year-old Janie, and a 5-year-old Tommy. So boy, girl, boy, and yeah, it's very busy around my house. But so when I was 10, I went to neighbors, knocked on neighbors' doors. My dad, this is a really, really key piece of advice. I actually listened to a little bit of the podcast you did with Matt Bevin, Governor Matt Bevin, and I love when he was empowering people to push their kids to fail early and often. And you hear cliche things like that a lot, but getting your kids to go outside of their comfort zone early is really, really important, and to get them to learn how to talk to adults, right? So there's this stigma on homeschoolers where they're going to be that awkward kid, right? And I was not that, and I could have been. Anybody can be awkward, right? Like somebody who goes to public school can be awkward and not know how to talk to people. But it's your parents' job to push your kids to do stuff that they're uncomfortable with, to learn how to talk to adults. So my parents would always make me introduce myself when we went over to people's houses or something like that. So my dad was like, what do I do when I get advertisement mail in the mail for a service? And I'm 10 years old, and I'm like, you throw it away. I see you do it all the time. It's junk mail. Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put it in people's mailboxes to try and get them to let me cut their grass. And my dad was like, you have to go knock on doors. And I was terrified of that. My brother, he was 12 at the time. He was a lot more outgoing. I think he probably did most of the talking. But I mean, I used to get completely red in the face, just so uncomfortable. Until really, I used to get really uncomfortable with public speaking until last year when I started my own running podcast with 2 other buddies, which we can talk about that later if you want. But
yeah, definitely.
So
you'll be able to tell if you listen to this who the podcast pro is in the studio today, and it is not me. So.
That is not true. You're amazing at talking. But so we knocked on doors with people.
This is in White Blossom, right?
This is in White Blossom.
Okay.
I grew up in Springhurst, White Blossom, which is a great place to start. People have a little bit of exposable income, but they're kind of looking for the guy who's the cheap guy. You know, they're not like, you know, your $5 million houses in Louisville that they're not going to hire a kid, right? They want a professional service.
They want those stripes.
Right. So we're knocking on doors, and we ended up getting about
Were you push mowing at the time?
Yes.
Did you have a self-propeller? Did you have...
No, we had cheap mowers. Like my dad actually was nice enough. He purchased kind of all the first equipment for us, but we had just some push mowers. We had a plug-in weed eater and a plug-in blower.
Ooh.
And I remember the first time we bought a powered piece of equipment was just, I mean, it was just next level. And that was essentially like fast forwarding the story. You know, the name of this podcast is Risky Business. I love the name of this because it immediately turns people's minds to like, you know, how like being in the entrepreneurship mindset, right? It always requires some level of risk. But in my first 10 years of business, I wouldn't consider that my professional years of business. My professional years have been the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. But in the first 10 years...
Which is wild that you're sitting here at age 29 with 20 years of experience.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. I mean, I've only done one thing. But, you know, in those first 10 years, I lived with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any debt. And my dad was very, very into the Dave Ramsey mindset. A lot of people are probably familiar with that. And I had peers in the business that were completely opposite of that. They wanted me to acquire debt. They wanted me to invest in equipment. And I always was super uncomfortable with doing that at a young age. So I never had any debt. I always would save up, is like whenever I would have a piece of equipment in mind that I knew I wanted to buy, that I usually researched on YouTube or something, and I would save up literally until my bank account had enough money, and then I would take my bank account to zero, and I would go buy that piece of equipment. I did that time and time and time again, and that is, I mean, you know, if I were to start again at 29, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? If I were to have to start a business with 3 kids and a wife, I would have to take out a loan and take that risk. But the fact, like organic growth of business, and if you can get your kids to do something like this, like get your girls, like when they're old enough, like with friends, like if they're 15, to like start cleaning houses, like, you know, anything that like somebody doesn't want to do as a service, you can grow it. And like people are like, well, there's no money in cleaning houses. We'll scale it. I mean, you could do anything. Like Molly Maid in Louisville, they have tons and tons of cars, and people do not want to clean their toilets. People don't want to clean.
And people might say there's not money in cleaning houses, but I've seen some houses that people will pay to have clean, and it's like, oh my gosh, the cost it's $500 to come clean this house, and then you can knock it out in a day or a day and a half, and it's like it takes 2 weeks worth to go get a normal minimum wage job that I was working when you were doing your landscaping. I was working at the Lake Forest pool lifeguarding. You know what I mean? Like making $10 an hour or whatever I made. So it's like, yes, the risk there. I think the fun part for me to look at the way that you've done it is I was sitting down with coffee with a guy yesterday or 2 days ago, and I was hammering the same point. He wants to start his own business and go out on his own, and he's single with no kids and no debt and lives with family. I'm like, dude, this is
perfect.
You have the risk is gone when you're at the younger age versus if I wanted to go start over new right now, or if you wanted to go start over new, the risk is we have we have things that come with us of kids and mortgages and, you know what I mean? Just everything else. So I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. So how old are you at this point? You've acquired some lawns.
There was a turning point. So my brother went to college. He's 2 years older than me. So I guess when he was 19, he went to UK. He was a soccer star there. And then I was 17. And that was the time when I started investing in equipment. And it started to get a little bit more serious. You know, I was doing like, I think 20 to 30 lawns a week, just mowing. And
Just you?
Yeah.
Wow.
And on top of school. And I would have some buddies help me occasionally, but it just started to get to a point where I was like, I need equipment. And I was always looking to be more efficient. Like efficiency has always been just like hammered in my brain. And I just can't stand when there's inefficiency in something. And if I know that there's a piece of equipment that I can do it better, I always get that piece of equipment, which is interesting in my business where it is now. Like rental, you can rent certain things that are, you know, pretty cheap to rent. Like, for example, a sod cutter. No one listening to this podcast knows what a sod cutter is. It doesn't matter. It cuts sod, and you need it for some jobs. Often, I would find myself needing it twice a month, right? It is a $6,000 piece of equipment, and it looks like a push mower. It's ridiculous. You can't lift it. You have to have a machine to lift it. It's super heavy, but it rolls and it cuts sod, right? It's like $75 a day to rent. It's nothing. And all of my peers in the business, I mean, I have probably 5 or 6 really good friends that are much older than me. Most of them have been doing it for longer than I've been alive. And they're like, do not buy that. Do not buy that sod cutter. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about the return on investment. I don't care. I care about the efficiency. And I promise you it has paid off because it takes an hour to go get the equipment. Sometimes it's not available at the rental place.
I was going to say the day you need it.
Correct. And then I had to schedule in advance. And then when that day gets rained out, then I have to push it to the next day. And they're like, oh, sorry, this is rented out the next day. So the fact that I have every single piece of equipment I need in my shop to get at any time is something that I've been able to really scale my business in kind of like an at-will way. Like, you know, oh, you need this huge job done tomorrow? I have everything I need to do that. I now have all the materials I need at my shop to handle any job. So basically at the drop of a hat, we're ready for anything, which has taken a long time to get there, right? A lot of investment. But so the turning point happened when my brother went to college and I started investing. And then the really big point, it was actually an app called Nextdoor. Most people are probably familiar with that app now. But the Nextdoor app, a buddy showed me that. I was probably 19, and I was able to market myself in like my like region area around White Blossom, and that made me explode. Like, it was really, really interesting how that happened, but I got like 30 to 40 recommendations on Nextdoor, and I was the highest rated by a long shot, by like 35 recommendations on Nextdoor. And it's just because I had so many in a tight area from growing up in White Blossom. I still cut about 50 a week in there.
Wow.
Yeah, most people know my name or just see my trucks. Like, we have a monopoly on White Blossom because we're just in there. I have a truck in there every day. And so the Nextdoor app allowed me to really expand. I probably tripled in that year, which wasn't much. But then, and it came a point, I met my wife in freshman year of U of L. And
so you did go to college?
I did.
Okay.
I went to college for 2 years.
Okay.
And I didn't have a plan. I didn't really have, like, I wasn't like, I'm going to do this lawn care thing. I'm going to do this landscaping thing. And I am going to, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to grow this huge business. It wasn't big. My tax return the year I got married showed $30,000 in profit. And I thought that was sweet. Like, I didn't care. But I didn't really have this plan. I didn't like listen to business podcasts. I didn't read business books. Like, I didn't no one was telling me that I should do this or that. But, college is something that my parents did and my brother did and my sister did. So I'm like, I should probably go to college and then I'll probably get a big boy job, or maybe I didn't have a plan. Yeah. So I was just kind of going through the motions, went to U of L, and my sophomore year. So when I was 21, I had just turned 21. I got married in December of 2016. Yes. And so I'm going into my 9th year of marriage. And I was talking to my wife, Alex, and basically it came to a point where I had to choose college or business. And I was like, man, I feel like I got a pretty good thing going. The business is growing. I'm going to choose the business. I'm going to take a gap year from college, and then I'm going to go back. I promise I'll go back. I want to get this degree. The degree matters to me. I did not go back to ruin the story, but my business was able to exponentially grow once I was able to focus on my business. Having your hands in multiple different.
So when you
jars.
started, you said you tripled the year Jacob went to college.
Maybe a little after that, but
okay, so you went from 20 lawns to 60 lawns,
something like that. More revenue. The lawns just consistently grew through just a hustle grind, just doing a good job.
How do you have time to go to see? I mean, did you have to start hiring people then when you were at 60?
Yeah, so
because that seems like impossible to do if you're doing 10 a day.
That's where the decision came.
Yeah,
college or landscaping.
Yeah,
it was one or the other because it came to a point where I didn't have time. I'd come home from classes, I hardly had any time to study. I did have one employee, which talking about, taking risks and failing, I failed big on my first employee. When you're hiring people, make sure you hire the right person. But he taught me a lesson, and more like his uncle taught me a lesson, but I'll keep names out of this. But my first ever employee turned me into the IRS.
No.
Yeah. So I had no employees, right? I had no payroll for 10 years.
Yeah.
Or longer. I guess it was like 11, 12 years. And it was a little kid business. It wasn't a big deal. And half the time it was just cash. Like a neighbor would just give me $20. Like it's not a big deal, right? Well, so I hired this guy, and my accountant, who I won't say who it is, he's not my accountant anymore. He told me just do 1099, right? Just do 1099, and he'll just be a contractor, and it'll be fine. It's just one employee. Well, you can't do that. If it's an employee, you can't do that. You need to do payroll. It costs more. Whatever, it's a lot more hassle, and on the front end, it's a lot of work. But so this guy, I fired him because he sucked, and he had a very smart uncle who was an attorney, and his uncle helped him turn me into the IRS, and because he should have been a employee, W-2 employee. Well, that turned into a very large mess, and it felt like the end of the world for me. It wasn't that big of a deal, but basically I paid him like $3,500, and I ended up paying him $7,000 by the end of it, which for me at the time, when my tax return showed $30,000, that's like 25% of my business. Like that was a lot, but I learned the hard way. And a lot of times I've had to do that in my life, in my business and stuff. I'm stubborn, and a lot of times I'll get in trouble by not doing research. But I now have 7 very happy employees that
are all on payroll and W-2 employees.
And I would have done that from the jump, but it is what it is. But
that's funny. Well, it's another example of, I think, one of the reasons I started this podcast was I enjoy podcasts. I enjoy consuming stuff that way. And I feel like there's so many people of the younger age group who do enjoy consuming that way. And if there's one person who's 18 years old sitting out there and finishing up high school and going, man, maybe I don't have a desire to go to college. Maybe it's the situation of what you were just sitting in on. All my family went to college. That's kind of the route that I might take. But the risk you can take when you're young, even if let's say today you were in a problem with the IRS, the problem you're going to be facing today is going to be much, much larger than if it was your first employee when it was $30,000 to $7,000. And so it's the point that I'm hearing from you over and over again is just when you start at a young age, the risk you're taking is substantially less. And the possibility for failure is like, okay, you were living at your family's house before you got married, mowing how many lawns when you were living with your parents.
Yeah,
like the risk at starting early is substantially less. So that's one thing that I knew from your story is obviously there's people who listen out there who are sitting there going, well, I have a family and I have kids and I have a mortgage and the risk is bigger for me now. But the challenge to young people is how early can you take the risk?
Yeah, but also when there is more on the line, right? That's when stuff happens, man.
Mhm.
Like when there is necessity, like that is when results happen. When you have a deadline, or if it comes down to like your family eating and like you paying your mortgage, you're gonna make it happen. It doesn't matter. If I had to start again and I had to hustle, I would do it, and I would do it well, And this is one thing I talk about this a lot on my own podcast.
Yeah, tell us about your podcast for a minute, because this is the whole second wing of Scotty Scearce.
Well, so this kind of ties into what I was about to say, but short thing of what I was about to say is basically, it is in 2025, it is not hard to be successful. I do not think. I don't think it's hard to be a millionaire. I don't think it's hard to be to grow a business, to be super successful. And don't take that in a way that comes off like, I say that in a really, really humble way. I don't think it's hard because the simplest way to put it is everyone is distracted. It is so easy to put yourself on top in today's day and age, like with the younger generation. And when I say younger, like everybody says that, that's super cliche as well. I say younger, anywhere from like 15 to like 35. I mean, everyone is so distracted, and just simply their phone, right? Social media is extremely distracting. It is so easy to be different, Like my goal in my personal business is to, when I meet with a client and when I leave, I want them to say, something's different about Scotty. Like, go in with a smile and with a ton of energy. Like you just had 2 cups of coffee and you want nothing more than to be right there talking about whatever you're selling, right? Whether you're selling windows, whether you're selling carpet, whatever you're selling, it could be boxes, whatever. Like, go in with a mindset that I want, like, this person needs to feel like the most important, and mean it. Don't just be, don't be fake about it. Don't close your door and then take the smile off. Like, act that way all the time, right? If you act that way in your daily life, then going into your business, you're going to do it. And guess what? You will be successful. It is like, and then do what you say you're going to do. But one thing I've done is I get quotes out immediately. So I look them in the face after I'm like have passion about what you're selling. Like I said, go in and be like, I cannot wait to see this space transform into something that is livable. Like, I can't wait to fix this drainage solution so that you don't have mosquitoes anymore and your kids can play out here and you can come home after work and crack open a beer and watch your kids play without getting bit by mosquitoes. Like, that sounds cliche, but people are like, you're right.
It's a life changer.
Yeah.
If you got mosquitoes in I've had a yard with mosquitoes in
exactly.
it. It's a life changer.
Like, be passionate about what you're selling and show people, and then look them in the eye and say, I'll have a quote to you in 5 minutes. And they're like, what is going on? Like, and then tell them the only thing that I need to get started is a 50% deposit. And that's not because I need help with materials. That's because I want to lock you in the schedule. I need to make sure that you're serious and I'm serious. And then once I get that deposit, we're off to the races and we'll get it done, and get it done in a timely manner, right? And, those steps of being like super intentional, super passionate, and then being a man of your word and doing what you say you're going to do. So how that leads into the podcast, what I was going to say. So 4 buddies and I, it's 3 now, but 4 buddies, or 3 buddies, it's 3 of us.
It was 4
Started
people,
as
now
4
it's
of
3
us.
people. Math is hard.
Yes.
You were homeschooled.
I was homeschooled. I was actually
kidding,
very
sorry.
good at math.
I'm just kidding.
But
You're pumping out quotes in 5 minutes on square footage of yard. You're probably pretty good.
I just
with
estimate it. But I've also gotten really good at that. So the podcast, right? It was 3 buddies and me, so 4 of us. And we had a lot of good things to say, a lot of good life advice.
Because you're a runner.
Yes, I run a lot. A lot of good life advice, a lot of good stuff about running, a lot of good stuff about nutrition, fitness in general, family life, being healthy, all that kind of stuff. And we would talk in this group chat, talk a lot, like 500,000 texts a day. And we call it the OTQ boys, is the group chat. And I hope you all listen to this. Shout out to the OTQ boys. I will be sending this to you, and there will be a test after. But so
Drop a secret code word in there that they have to send you. What's the code word? if you're one of the boys, text Scotty this word right now.
Sadler is the best looking person in the group chat. That's what the code word is.
There you go.
So 4 of us, we said we should start a podcast, and then we were like, that's so much effort. I don't know how to do it. Like whatever. It's and this just goes
This
to
was last year.
yes. So January of 2024 is when we started it, and it's become super successful, and we make money off of it, and it's a business now,
And it's good. I've listened to some of it too. It's inspiring. It makes me want to get out and run.
Yeah,
Which
I mean,
there's not many things that make me want to do that. So
like we've had some people on that like with incredible stories. We've met some incredible people. The network, I was talking to you about this on the phone last week, but just the spider network of people we've met through this has been just so rewarding. And you know, what I said earlier about I don't think it's hard to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to start something, be better than the rest and just do it. Just dive in and do it. Take whatever risk you need to do to start it, but then follow through with that risk and freaking grind until you get the result. And that's what we've done with the podcast. You know, we were like, okay, we're going to do 2 episodes a week. We're going to be consistent. There's going to be certain seasons where we're not going to want to do 2 episodes a week. But when when those seasons come, like the great thing about it is there's 3 of us and we're able to lift each other up. We celebrate wins together. A ton of momentum is able to be built. And you know, the beginning snowball of starting a podcast is hard. It's like, it is really hard. Like a lot of people won't respond to you because we're dealing with people that, you know, it's a very niche market in this. And we're dealing with people that, you know, have 500,000 followers to 1 million followers on Instagram. And they see us with 1,500 followers with Life in Stride podcast. And they're like, I'm not going to talk with these guys, you know, but, so the best ones that come, the best guests we have are usually referrals.
That's awesome.
But it has been a truly rewarding experience, and we're super excited we did 100 episodes in our first year.
Which is nuts.
It's
I'm trying to get to 24 in the first year. So
you can do it.
It's 100 is, I can't imagine doing 4X that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the more you practice, the better you get. I used to be horrible at talking and like keeping my train of thought and, you know, asking intriguing questions and stuff like that. But it's funny, the guy who runs the studio we're in, Cam, I was on his podcast a while ago, and I guarantee you, if you listen to that version now, it's drastically different.
Yeah.
Just because of like the comfort level of practice. And that goes with anything, man. Like when I first started selling and doing landscaping, you know, it was
and the name of your company
is Scearce Lawncare.
Okay.
Is the
in case you're in the Louisville area, which shockingly Spotify gives me like note of most everybody's in the Louisville area. There's listeners from all around. But
yeah,
so,
no.
Hey, there you go. This could be. I'll take a 25% referral of any future business, but
that it doesn't work that way. I'll give you a really big hug soon. No, for real. If you
I'm
want
in
landscaping or
estate.
lawn care, hit me up. But yeah,
funny.
I mean,
if you got mosquitoes in your backyard, you know who to call.
I'm not a mosquito guy, but I will fix your drainage problem.
There you go.
Mosquitoes like water, so it's probably a water issue. But.
I lived in a house one time that we had bad mosquitoes. It was on a farm. And we didn't know why we had horrible mosquitoes. And we never went on the back porch. And then one day I realized the sump pump was just pumping underneath the patio. And so it was literally just
Dumping a pond.
a pond of 2 inches of just the most stagnant, gross water. And the mosquitoes loved that.
It'll recycle too. It'll like go down in the foundation.
Oh,
and then
the
reset.
sump pump ran all day, even when it was dry, because it was just, yeah. So all we had to do, send it out. Mosquito problem was
No more
fixed.
mosquitoes.
Yeah, it was brutal. But okay, so back to Scearce Lawn Care, back to building your business. For somebody listening to this, what's your biggest piece of advice that you've learned in building a business from somebody who's doing it on their own, transitioning to now having 7 staff members?
Best advice. You know, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I'm going to say all the cliche things on this podcast because I freaking love cliche, man. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. People say that, but I mean it. Like I
legitimately dirty in your field.
I used to like legit. People love seeing the owner working hard. Like there is nothing shameful about it to like legit work a 14-hour day. I used to work 100-hour weeks. And I did that before I had kids. So, you know, if you have kids, I don't recommend that. I don't think that's the best piece of advice, and I don't think that's the key to success, 100-hour weeks, because my best piece of advice, if you have kids, is be with your kids as much as you can. You know, work less than 40 hours a week if you can. But if you can't and you got to work a lot, you got to work a lot, you know, but be creative. You're going to lose sleep. Like you got to put your kids as a priority. So play with them while they're awake. And then when they go to sleep, do your paperwork, right? But have your priorities in line, but get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and be consistent. Consistency, compounding consistency is super powerful. And there's a guy that we've had on a few times on our podcast. He's a really well-known running coach, and he's extremely smart, really gifted speaker. His name's Jeff Cunningham. But he says this saying all the time. He says, be consistently good versus occasionally great, which is really powerful. It just speaks on being consistent in what you're doing instead of like every once in a while just producing the best freaking podcast you can produce, Sam, right? But every podcast you produce, make it quality, make it impactful, you know, be intentional with your guests, that kind of thing. And just be consistent. Show up when you say you're going to show up. You know, if you promise people things, deliver on your promises. And if you have a service business that's reoccurring, show up at the same time and the same week. People like routine. People like schedules. Everybody does. And they like to see that their people are going to show up in uniform. They're clean cut. Your truck is clean. And they show up every Monday at 10 a.m. They like that. Yeah. And it's really, really powerful to be consistent. You know, I am really into running. I've been running for almost 3.5 years now. And I have come a long way in my running journey. And the biggest part of that, people are like, how did you run a 2:41 marathon? You know, like that's 6:08 pace. Like that should be impossible. And I know a lot of people that are much, much faster than me. And some people that are slower than me that, you know, they're like, how did you do that? And it's just consistency. You just keep going. You know, this year I'll probably run a faster marathon, and that's just because
you said 2:06 is what you did.
No, I did a 2:41.
Oh, 2:41. That's 6 minutes. Well,
6 minutes. 6:08 pace.
I don't know running terms very well, but 6:08 for that many miles seems pretty wild.
Yeah, it's.
My wife did an ultra.
She did.
She did an ultra. Yes, 31, 32.
That's 50K.
Yeah,
50K.
Yeah, she did 50K.
Nice. Where?
In Virginia.
Dude, Virginia's
in the mountains it was like going through mountains. It was before we were married.
No way.
Yeah.
Does she still run?
Not as much, but she definitely can. But she definitely could. She could beat me in a race all day. But
that's awesome,
dude. That's okay. So what made you spark running?
Well, my buddy Grant was very into fitness. Grant Bellinger, you probably know Grant.
I do know Grant,
and he's a Louisville guy. Shout out Grant. He got me into running because I went to a triathlon event that he did in Louisville. It was called Try Louisville. I'm so sorry, Grant, if I get that wrong. Mike Purvis puts on that event, or he did. And we took a picture together, and I went home. And I looked at the picture, and he's in a tri suit, which is basically like, it's like a one piece that's jammers all the way up to like a track suit, basically. And I was like, dang, he looks really good. Like, he's really fit. I'm serious. This is what got me into it. He was like, he looks really fit, and I look like, I don't have a dad bod or anything. I've always been pretty skinny, but I'm like, I want to look like that. So I just started running. I went on a 4-mile run, and I never stopped. I just did it every day, basically, since then. And now we're here.
And there's snow on the ground in Louisville today, and he said he was about to head home and run.
After this podcast, I have to do a 10-mile run with 8 miles at 6 flat, which is going to be, hopefully it's easy, but it's going to be hard when it's this cold.
Oh, it's
your
brutal.
like joints just
brutal. Okay, so back to the business stuff.
Right. So
challenging young people to start early.
Yeah.
When it comes to, what do you feel like the biggest risk you took? Because a lot of things you're saying, like, I mean, it wasn't a huge risk to jump in at the time you did. As you grew your business, what was the biggest risk you took in it?
Probably just large equipment purchases for cash, like $90,000 trucks for cash, just writing checks for $90,000 trucks. I did that. I've probably done it 4 times, and then piece of equipment, $50,000. Everything is cash, which a lot of people, I still kind of follow the model of like build the bank account and drain it. And most people do not follow that, but I still operate a business on no debt. And it has been a lifesaver. If you can do that, if you fight to pay off your debt, fight to pay off all your cars, and then freaking pay off your house, man. Paying like a mortgage free living is like, it is freedom.
Yeah.
And being able to fight and do that, and you can do it. Everybody can do it. If you're like, well, my job just doesn't pay enough, start a side hustle, get a new job, make the risk, take the jump. I promise you can do it. Hustle, and people are going to be like, this guy wants it.
Well, Dave Ramsey says it best. He says the grass feels different when you own it.
Yeah,
and the bank doesn't own it.
The grass does feel
different.
Man,
we went through some fun Dave Ramsey times right out of college, Kathleen and I, and I would listen to his podcast every day, and it was just the same thing all over again. So all his cliche quotes, I can spout off all of them at any time, and I love it.
I bet you can.
I love it.
But if you can get your kids into something, I don't necessarily love like the whole chore and like allowance thing. And like, I didn't really do that as a kid, but my mom and my dad encouraged my brother and I to do this young and then do it well. My dad always he would make us go back and fix stuff. Like he would go check, he would be our like quality control guy, which I appreciated now, especially, but he was like making sure we did a good job. And that was one thing he installed in us. He was like, you have to do a good job. I want this to be like quality work. If people are going to pay you for something, it needs to be quality. So install that in your kids, right? To learn how to do it young. And, it's just, people always get their feathers a little ruffled when I say that it's not that hard to be successful. I really don't.
I completely agree with what you said on, and I've said it in my business of real estate, that if you can do what you say you're going to do and truly work hard, your time is going to come. And if you put in the hours of work, and you know what I mean, it's a lot of times people expect to, and similar to landscape, it's like, oh, I got a truck and I got a t-shirt out there and my phone's not ringing yet. And in real estate, it's like, oh, I passed my real estate test. Why isn't my phone ringing yet for somebody wanting to sell their house?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you have to prepare the right way, but if you can prepare the right way and then do what you say you're going to do, show up when you say you're going to show up, and be honest with people.
Yeah.
I think another thing that you've hit on without saying it is just a laser focus of, you didn't go down 4 different routes of,
correct.
Well, here's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to open up. The name's been the same forever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
lawn care is actually spelled wrong, but I like it.
How do you spell lawn care?
It's
wrong?
2 words.
Oh, okay.
I did it as 1 word, lawn care with no space, but I actually like it because Scearce and Lawncare are the same amount of characters.
That's
so
nice.
It
it
fits
goes
really
over
well.
Top of each other.
Yeah.
But you were laser focused, and I think that is, as you went back to saying, quote unquote, our generation or the young generation of 18 to 35, I think it's easy to get non-laser focused and to say, well, this buddy looks like he's doing good doing this side hustle, and he's trading stocks, and he's doing wholesaling on Amazon fulfillment, and Scotty's doing landscaping, and this guy's doing car rentals on Turo, and it's like there's a million ways to make money
100%. And
start a business. And I think that the path is I go back to the coffee I had with the guy yesterday, is if you can get laser focused and you can sit down and say, I asked him, I was like, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? Is this what you want to do? And he's like, yeah, I love it. And I'm like, dude, start your own thing. If you know this is what you're going to want to do, I promise you in 5 years, you're going to wish you started your own thing this year.
He will make 5x what he makes now.
I literally hope he listens to this. I literally said, I'm glad you said it. I literally said 5x. I was like, dude.
I was about to say 10x. I was like, that might be a little
stretch.
But you'd be surprised.
Back to the cliche quote, the best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. And it's, you time flies. And also when you in the negative side of the social media world, it's definitely there. And you kind of hit on that already, on everybody's distracted. But as you get into business, everybody's so distracted all the time. We see it in the news cycle. Something big happens. This plane falls out of the sky and it lands upside down. And then 2 days later, we've all forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can get consistent for 3 months to be consistently doing the same thing for 3 months, people think you've been doing it for 3 years in their mind.
Yes.
And obviously you with 20 years experience in lawn care, it's like
Right.
you've done this consistently, and your name and your brand and has been in East Louisville consistently. So tell me about your business now. You don't need to break down numbers, but tell me about, you have 7 employees, you mow a bunch of grass, you do a bunch of landscaping, I know. Is kind of your main gig.
We have 7 trucks. Most of them are new, and we have lots of equipment, way more equipment in trucks than I have guys. Normally I carry 6 guys, and we probably could have more like 10 to 12, but I love doing what I do on a really, like I said earlier, a really efficient, tight scale. I love being just like, there's no wasted time ever, which my guys probably absolutely hate because they're always working. But so I got 6 trucks and then my own, so 7, and then 7 guys this year coming up. We start on Monday. There's snow on the ground, but we will still start doing something. And
do you do snow removal as well?
I do not. I do not do commercial snow removal. So
you're passing on the white gold, they say.
I am.
Somebody told me it was white gold.
Yeah, but also the gold that they're missing out on is going sledding with your kids and seeing your kids play out in the snow and stuff. And my buddies that do snow removal, they all wish they didn't, and because their kids are always, snow always comes in the middle of the night, and they're always working all night. And then they come home and they've been up for 24 hours straight, and then they still have to clean their trucks because if you don't clean your trucks right away, they rust.
Yeah, you get salt all over them.
You gotta, and your kids are like, Daddy, I want to go sledding. And unfortunately, they're too tired and they still have to work. So when my kids are like, Daddy, I want to go sledding, I'm like, let's go. Let's get on our stuff. They last for like 10 minutes, but you know,
that was my son Rhodes this last snow. It was like he kept rubbing his face with his gloves. And I'm like, dude, stop. Yeah. If we lasted 10 minutes, we were back
but it's still it's
so
fun. It's fun to like be out there sledding with your kids, you know, because I don't do snow, but so we do.
You start next week.
Yes, we do what we do really well, and I do not get into things I don't do well. We don't do fertilization and weed control in lawns because I don't love chemicals. So I try and do as minimal of that as possible. And that's a whole nother realm. So I stay out of that. And we don't do big time hardscape stuff because it's not my passion. And so we...
And Ray said, don't look at him. You just looked at him.
I did look at him. I love you, Cam.
Cam walked into the room and he told us before the podcast, if I come in, don't acknowledge me.
I did. I love
And Scotty said, I can't promise that.
Well, we don't do hardscapes, we don't do fertilization and weed control, and we don't do irrigation. We don't do those three things. The rest we do, and we do really well.
That's
Landscape design, maintenance, and installation, that's our bread and butter. You know, turning your home into a place that you're proud of, basically, where people pull up and they're like, wow, that is amazing. You know, I love that about my old house. The landscaping, the flowers out front and everything was like super spectacular. And I don't do that because I have to. I do that because I love it. Like I tore out a completely pretty landscape to most that the guy was really proud of. It was like a retired guy that we bought it from in Prospect, and I put in this landscape. But every time somebody walked past, they would like turn their head and be like, wow, that is like, and I know it. Like we'd be on the front porch and people would be like, man, I love your flowers. They're so amazing. I'm like
Scearce landscape or Scearce lawn care, man. It's one word. They're great.
I'm like, yeah.
You're wearing the t-shirt.
I'm usually like, I know a guy. But
and you just built. Have you done landscape on your place yet?
Yes. So we built a home in Crestwood, Kentucky, and we use Mesa Construction. Highly recommend. And yes, I did my own landscape. And a lot of people are like, man, it's so great you own a landscaping company. It saves you a lot of money. It really doesn't. I actually end up spending a lot more than most people would.
Yeah.
And like it would end up being like $100,000 or $200,000 landscape for most. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but I enjoy having really nice landscaping, and I don't know if it's necessarily my passion, but it's been my whole life. So I find a lot of pleasure through it when it looks nice, and my wife is proud of her home, you know, when people come over, and I'm proud of my home when my family and friends come over to see it. But I mean, it's been a long time coming. I'm in a very comfortable spot in my business now. After 20 years, I have built it to a point where my foremans and my help are very experienced. I pay them a lot. I pay them way higher than the market rate. I tell them to their face, and I tell other people this. This is a really important key thing that I coined myself, and you can take it or you can leave it. But I always tell people, I look them in the face, new hires, and I say, I pay people for what they're worth, not what I think I can get them for. And that I made a mistake on one guy. His name was Vaughn. And I wish he was running my business right now. And he left because I didn't pay him enough. He found a better offer. But he was amazing. He was like one of the most gifted just humans and overall. And I lost that opportunity because I paid him what I thought I could get him for. So now I pay people what they're worth. And it's a lot, but it's worth it because
your small crew of 7, highly motivated and trained and ready to roll, can do more than a crew of 12.
Correct.
It's just kind of saying, hey, I'm making what I can make and getting by and doing it that way.
Yeah. And, and I'm content. I don't think contentment is bad. I am enjoying my season of life, right? I'm not in a hustle season of life. I'm not in a grind season of life. But I think it's important to be in that in some aspect of your life in some way, whether it's like with your grinding with your family, like fighting to keep your family happy and healthy and your kids to know you and your wife to love you, right? It takes work you should date your wife. Right?
Dude, and I go back to like the fact that you're 29 years old and at a point where you're saying, hey, I'm not in that. I am in the grind, hustle, work stage. You know what I mean? I'm 30 and I turn 30 tomorrow. But if you're listening to this podcast, I'm already 30, so you were late on the birthday text. But the reason why you're able to be a little bit more or just content or not complacent, but a little bit more set in your way where you're at now is because you started so early.
Right.
And that's just the challenge. If you're young, listen to this. If you're a parent listening to this, and your kids are 9 years old and you're saying, oh, they just sit on the iPad all day, that's on you. Go get your son out there and say, hey, it's about to be spring. Can we raise some money? I was with a kid last week who was, my wife threw me an early birthday party. They made this kid came and made the best pizzas. It was awesome. Put them in the oven, all this stuff. And he had a tip jar out, and his tip jar said, instead of just having a tip jar for making pizza, he had a thing on it that said like, hey, I'm starting a pressure washing business. And it costs $480 or whatever to buy this pressure washer that I want to buy to start my business. And the kid's 13. And I don't know how much he made in tips, but I think he made a good amount of money in tips. And it was like, people are so much more ready. I told him afterwards, we were talking, I was like, you have something that I do not have. You have the Scotty Scearce walking at 9 years old, knocking on doors ability that I cannot walk up to a door and be like, hey, can I mow your grass? They're like, get out of here. It says no soliciting. I'll tell the HOA. It's like, for you at 9 years old, you have something that nobody else has. So if you're a parent listening to this and you have kids that are 12, 15, 16, it's not too early to get out there and start something that they enjoy or that they know a lot about. And kind of like what Scotty hit on earlier, there's a lot of things you can start off that people just don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's that's my favorite part of your story is just that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's been a long time coming, but like I said, contentment is okay. And it's good to be, I'm content in my business. It still requires work, but not nearly as much as it did. And it kind of runs itself at most points, and I'm able to do.
But you still get your hands dirty?
Not as much as I used to.
A wise man once told me the boss should always get his hands dirty about 20 minutes ago.
I did,
so.
Yeah. But you also said when starting a business.
I'm just
not 20 years in.
You're 20 years in.
I still get my hands dirty, and I love it. But
I'm just messing
with the size of my business, like there is a certain aspect where I have to continue to grow a bit, or at least stay the same. But it was probably 4 years ago where I jumped into the 7-figure realm of the business itself, and that comes with pressure a bit because keeping up with 7 figures, and we have to do it in 10 months. So keeping up with that can be challenging, especially with economic stuff and like election years and people don't know if they have the money or what, and all that kind of stuff. It plays into your business. So that does provide a little bit of stress for me, but stress is something that I really don't have anymore because, well, there's a couple things. One, a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, I changed the way I live my life spiritually a lot, and I put complete trust in the Lord in my business. I tell him that, every spring, like, Lord, my business is yours. I want to honor you through it. I want to honor you through my life, and I want people to see me, and I want them to say he's different, right? And I want them to see Christ in me, right? So I have to work at that every day because I get caught up in worldly things just like everybody else. But, I want people to see like a God-fearing man through my business, and then I trust him with my business. I trust him with my employees, my hiring, my firing, and it has been the best possible thing for my stress life. Also, running. If you're not doing something hard, I will say that you said, what do you recommend to somebody who is starting a business or taking a risk, whatever, or to be successful? Do something hard, right? And your business is not that something. It's something for yourself, right? And I like something physically hard. Sign up for a CrossFit membership, even if it's too expensive, or do something that every single day, at least 6 days a week, you are like, oh my gosh, that I can't believe like how hard that was. And then it will make the rest of your day easy. I promise.
That's what got me into ice bathing. My ice bath has a little hole in it right now, but last year I went 2 straight months of 5 to 6 days a week of it. And it was like, correlation wise to sales and real estate, I need to get back in the ice bath because it was just, you'd wake up early, you're ready to roll. Your mind's,
that's amazing.
Joe Rogan says it best. You've already done the hardest thing you're going to do all day. Everything else is cake after that.
It doesn't have to be running 10 miles like I do. It can be an ice
Mine's
bath.
done in 3 minutes. Yours just takes an hour.
It can be 200 push-ups every morning.
Yeah.
Like something that makes you have to work to physically, or at least like hardcore emotionally, mentally, that you can, and that will help you move forward as a person. It'll help you become a better person in all aspects of your life. Running has done a lot for me in my life. It gives you an outlet for your stress, which is really important. There is a lot going on in today. There's just a lot politically, emotionally, socially, all that kind of stuff. It's just like a lot going on. A lot of people have a lot of mental health, and you need something that you can put that towards, because in reality, like, you can't hold everything in, right? Somebody has to have a way to express it. And unfortunately, in a lot of people, it probably comes out in, I'm not a therapist, but it probably comes out in their relationships and stuff. I see, this is one thing that I have always tried to do, and it's incredible. The result is when I have a client treat me really poorly, really unfairly, say really mean things to me, or fire me for a reason that wasn't necessary, and then I respond with grace, and I'm just like I'm really sorry that obviously I did something to hurt you. I'm really sorry that I did that. And be genuine. Don't fight back. And you'd be surprised, like 70 to 80% of the time, I'll get a text the next day and be like, I'm so sorry. My mom has cancer and she has a month to live. And I just have a lot going on, and it came out on you. I'm really sorry. I appreciate the way you reacted. That's happened to me a lot in business, especially. And so, you need some way to express. You need some way to get that out, so doesn't come out in like to your wife or to your kids. And like yelling at your kids is, people say, don't yell at your kids. You're like, I would never yell at my kids, but people yell at their kids. I yell at my kids sometimes, but find a way to express that in a healthy way.
The other day, Rhodes, which I'm sure I've yelled at him, but My voice maybe comes off a little bit more stern than mommy's voice.
Of course.
And can't remember. I was asking him to do something. I wasn't even upset. And he was like, he didn't want to do it. So he goes into the other room and I hear him go into the bathroom and goes, Mommy, Daddy yelled at me. I'm like, hold on. Whoa. I did not yell. I'll yell if you want me to. I did not yell. He's 4. And I'm like, okay, buddy. But I saved this for last, Scotty.
What's up?
You know, I was going to hit on it. One of my favorite memories with Scotty was 2000, probably 13, 12.
I don't know. What are you about to say?
When we had the most viewed GoPro video of all time.
That's our claim to freaking fame. My ex-girlfriend's sitting next to me.
You go back to, we were at the rock quarry, which is for sale right now in commercial real estate. It is. And maybe it's sold. It's out of my price range. Might not be out of yours. But it's for sale. And the rock quarry, it's in LaGrange. We used to go up there and just like hang out and like jump in the water and stuff. Well, Scotty got a GoPro. And he was very talented with it and making videos and all this. So he was like, hey, let's have like a big party there one day. Let's film a cool video.
Yeah,
he made
like a long form video.
He made the sickest long form video. And then,
back in the day.
And then me being an absolute bum, I just was like, I guess ripped off, or maybe you sent me a clip of it and I posted it on Vine. And
7 seconds.
7-second video of Scotty sitting underneath a rock and he like throws the GoPro, it spins, I jump off the top of the rock. I'd like hurt my ankle, so I'm wearing an ankle brace. Everybody in the comments thought it was an ankle monitor. Not a felon or have never worn an ankle monitor, but I like jump in the water and catch it. So we post it, didn't think anything of it, and then it ended up getting like 70 million views.
Dude, it was a lot. And it was like on multiple different accounts.
And then it went to Facebook and somebody took it and it was like 140 million on somebody's Facebook. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Jacob told me somebody recognized you somewhere from that video. That's what he told me.
That was really funny. That was mine and yours claim to fame, even though it was like
it
was all on your Vine, which is hilarious.
No, but you did all the work for it, so that's why it was.
Dude, that was,
it was
with my
funny.
Ex-girlfriend next to me. So you can still find that video on YouTube.
I'll see if I can clip it somewhere.
You can dig
so
it,
funny.
but it's like really hard to find.
Somebody sent it to me not long ago, and it was in a I'll say the word wrong, compilation or compilation or whatever it is, where they did a bunch of videos together with GoPros. And I don't know the stats now, but at one time it was the most viewed GoPro video of the year.
Dude, it got on World Star.
It was on World Star.
Which
is on Barstool World
which
Star.
Which is hilarious.
Usually that was people fighting outside a middle school bathroom, but that was us.
That was us. That was back in the day.
Good memories. Anything else you want to hit on? Any risk you have coming up? I mean, you're saying you're pretty complacent right now and happy where you're at. So
yeah, sorry if I'm not like the most risky guy in the world.
No, but it's literally perfect because it's a good reminder that you don't have to take this massive risk where I'm going to bet everything on this. It's like you can become successful by taking very small risks that end up just compiling over time.
Yeah, I think there's like parts in my story that can encourage people that are about to take the big risk, or have, and like you can do it, and you can do it. If I know that if I did it again and I had to take a big risk, I could do it. And I promise you I could do it. I could do it again in 5 years. I could be in the place I am now. It would require a lot of work that I don't want to do, but I would if I had to. And, a lot of great things come out of necessity and when you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're taking that risk and sometimes people need that push.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They need that $100,000 loan that they like have to pay off in 5 years. Right. Or else they're going to go belly up, but you can do it. You can do it. Like, your mom believes in you, believe in yourself. You can do it. It's not that hard. You just got to be consistent and be willing to put in the work.
I love it. Where can people find, I mean, you don't post a ton on social media other than the Life in Stride, correct?
I don't actually have any personal social media.
So it's all Life in Stride.
Yeah. So if you want to see little bits of me, you got to go to Life in Stride podcast. But
Scearce Lawncare.
Scearce Lawncare actually doesn't even really have
an
active presence. I probably should.
I got somebody I can connect you with.
Maybe. Do it.
Yeah.
I just haven't. I haven't had a need, and I haven't had a want. So I've just personally, there were some personal reasons I got off social media. I'm back on with just the podcast, but that's a conversation for another day. But it's just, yeah, you can't really find me except for on this podcast. And you can hear my voice a lot on the Life in Stride podcast with two of my other buddies, Danny and Chris. But yeah, that's about it.
Fun, dude. Well, thanks for your time. Enjoyed it. I know it's going to be an encouragement to listeners of all ages, and enjoyed sitting down with you for an hour.
Yeah,
so,
appreciate.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah.